my wife just went to the front door, and then she brought me this box. That's the noise that you're hearing. If you heard any noise there, and I'm like, what is this?
Oh, look at that. It looks like this.
There it is.
There
It
it
looks.
is.
We,
I
you
love it.
know, that's,
Hello, and welcome to another episode of the Make It Podcast. I'm your host, Chris Barkley.
my man is so excited today, folks. He just hit me with that
Surprised you
hello,
with
hello. Oh, I love it. That was exciting. And of course, I am your co-host, Nick Bugs. Just happy to be here because Chris is obviously happy to be here.
I am happy to be here, and in our prep for this, I said it so subdued and so low, I thought
You
I would
did.
shock you by coming with new energy you didn't know I had.
Oh man.
And it's even better energy because I've been on a fast for 4 days, all liquid for 4 days. I don't want to tell you what
Ugh.
number 2 looks like, but here's the deal. here's the deal. I've lost 10 pounds
Look
in
at you.
4 days. It's insane what the
Water
body
weight.
does and what it doesn't want while, dieting and going to the gym. Anyway, but that's besides the point. With us today, guiding us on this journey is the one and only producer Papa Bear and the world famous intern Sam. Guys, say hello.
Hello. How's it going?
Beautiful. And of course, we have our esteemed guest today, Jim Frederick. Jim, say hello.
Hello. Thanks for having me, guys. It's great to
Well,
be here.
it is great that you're here. And we've had a lot of marketing people on this podcast in the past, but no one quite like you. You really stand out because you've, as you're going to share, really worked at the top of the game in marketing and trailer cutting, editing, poster creation, leading sort of these marketing efforts. And you have an incredible book. So now you're an author, you're adding, an authorship to sort of the pantheon of your legacy here. The book is called Opening Weekend. It's out on Amazon. Is it anywhere else, Jim?
Yeah, it's also at the University Press of Mississippi, my publisher.
Mhm.
Hopefully you can see that. Oh, look at that. Nick's doing a hell of a job in marketing. I love it, and I appreciate that. But I also recorded the audiobook. So the audiobook's available on Audible and lots of other places. And that was an interesting process to read
Yeah.
the entire book. It's a very conversational book anyway, so
I love that.
sense.
I love
Yeah.
that.
Yeah, Jim did it in one take. He's like, it's my story. I'm good. I've got this,
One
guys.
I
take.
knew,
You know,
I
right?
knew it like the back of my hand. Well, I love Audible. I use Audible every day, literally every day. And they were a former sponsor of our podcast back in the day. We should come on, Audible. What's up? Come back.
Right.
I'm
Come
so
back.
glad I mentioned their name.
Yeah, come back
That's
to the
right. Yep.
podcast. We love
Baby,
you. We
come
use
back.
you. Yeah, that's it. That's it. So before we get too deep into it though, Jim, can you just give us sort of a formal sense of a more formal than I gave, background, your history, some of the things I alluded to, and maybe the reason why you decided to jump out of one space and into the space of writing this book?
Yeah, I've been in a few spaces actually. But as you said, I started as a trailer editor out of college and worked at a trailer company, a vendor called Intralink, and did that for 9 years and started working on a bunch of Castle Rock films. And they got to know me. I got to know them. They were expanding, and I don't know if it was a wise move, but they said, "Would you like to come and be our head of marketing?" And I said, "Well, I'm a trailer editor. I know how to do that, but I don't know much about publicity and media buying and research and distribution and all the other things." And they said, "Don't worry about that. We want you for your trailer editing. You could learn the rest." And that's the kind of guys they were. They were an incredible group at Castle Rock, which was led by Alan Horn, who's arguably one of the greatest studio heads of all time. And of course, Rob Reiner was a partner, and a man named Martin Schaefer was my boss, and he was the head of the film division. So I worked there for 10 years, which was great, and did a lot of independent films, which I'm sure some of your listeners will be interested in. I really got a lot of experience marketing lower budget platform releases. Richard Linklater, Christopher Guest, um,
I
filmmakers
love
like that.
Christopher Guest.
Yeah, those films were a lot of fun to work on. And then I went over to the big boys at Warner Brothers. Castle Rock was purchased by Ted Turner, who was then eaten by Time Warner,
Mm-hmm.
and
Delicious.
consequently, it made perfect sense. And so I went over to a major studio, Warner Brothers, which at the time really was the number one studio in the world. Disney, I think, has since passed that studio, but that's okay. And had a long, long run there, working on bigger budgeted films, um, wider releases, Warner Brothers movies, the Harry Potter franchise. I worked on almost all of those films, creating the ad campaigns for those. Um, and then I kind of, I had a little run in with the new head of marketing after 11 years at Warner Brothers.
Yeah.
And I left the studio on my own. It's very odd for people to leave a studio job because they're pretty cool.
Yeah.
But I was, that was about 30 years into my career. So maybe I was running out of gas. I don't know. And just left and had no plans. But ended up getting a job offer from Sony Screen Gems, which was a genre label.
Mm-hmm. That's right.
Out of Sony.
Yep.
Columbia's their major tentpole movie distribution arm, and Screen Gems was smaller, and it was fun for a while until it wasn't. We had a lot of success, but as it happens in any business, whether it's Hollywood or not, I had a run in with the head of the studio, who was a brilliant guy, made really good films that did well. Let me change that. He made films that did well. I think they were good. They weren't great.
Right.
There were some good ones, but the odd thing was, in the 18 months I was there, um, we had almost all success, and then I got fired. And to this day, I don't know why. Which was, one of the inspirations to write the book. The first chapter of opening weekend is me getting fired by Jeff Blake, the head of Sony. So, which I called a cold open, and it was definitely cold. And
Yeah, I'm sure. Cold closure, more like it.
Yeah, but it was a blessing in the end. I ended up doing my own thing. I went back to trailer editing, my first love, still a great love of mine. I just think it's a blast cutting movie trailers. And did that for a couple years until a friend of mine said, I'm leaving Chapman University, the Dodge College of Film and Media Arts. Her name is Dawn Taubin. She was actually my former boss at Warner Brothers, and she went to take a job at DreamWorks and said, would you be interested in teaching? And I said, absolutely. It's something I always thought would be my last act. And I've been teaching at Chapman University for 15 years now.
Wow.
Where is Chapman?
Chapman's in Orange, California.
Yeah, Orange County.
Part of Orange County.
Okay. Yeah.
Ironically, about 3 miles from where I grew up in Anaheim.
Nice.
So that was kind of a nice circle of life moment for me. But absolutely enjoyed teaching. But had a sabbatical at one point, and I got tenure pretty early on, and I said, I'm going to take advantage of this sabbatical thing. What do I have to do? And I thought I'll write a book, and a lot of my students had encouraged it. They enjoyed the stories of my career, and wish I would tell more in class. I felt like you need to learn more than gossip and dissing stories. You need to learn a little bit about how to market a film. But I took their advice and the advice of other friends in the business, and lo and behold, here it is 3 years later after I started, and I have a book that basically is a hybrid of a memoir about my experiences of being kind of a schmuck from Anaheim who got into Hollywood and didn't know anybody. And, you know, there was, my parents were horrified that I went into the movie business because they didn't think I could make a go of it.
So were Michael
Maybe
Ovitz'
they were right.
parents.
I'm sorry, Chris.
So were Michael Ovitz's parents. Michael Ovitz, his parents were also
Yeah, I
horrified.
remember him.
Turned out okay.
Yeah.
Turned out okay for old Mike.
You know, the book exists now, and it's I'm very proud of it. And as I said, it's a part hybrid. You know, it's a hybrid kind of concept of, it's a memoir about, you know, stories, but it's also a case study of a lot of films I worked on. I think there's probably 80 films in there of every stripe, from documentaries even to animation and independent films and franchise movies, and, you know, just you name it, it's in there, every kind of genre. So that's one reason I was encouraged to write it too, is I think every film is like a fingerprint. You know, it requires a different marketing message, and I found that from the very first time I started cutting a trailer, I found that really exciting, to see if I could make a difference, to see if I can coerce, persuade, cheat, lie, whatever
Right.
you want to use, to get people to buy a movie ticket on Friday night.
Well, Jim, you're a good
So
writer.
that's a long-winded introduction to myself. I'm sorry, I kind of
No,
got carried
No,
away.
it was great.
that was
And-
perfect, man, because
and-
it tells us, it gives our audience an understanding of who you are and why you're here with
Why
us.
you're here, right?
Right.
And
I think that's very important.
we enjoyed the book. You're a good writer. We loved hearing these stories told in your authentic voice.
Yeah, it is a
not trying to-
conversational book.
Right.
It's not,
It
it's not a textbook.
Correct.
which is what we didn't necessarily expect it to be a textbook, Jim, but we did think it was coming out of someone who's an academic, right?
Right.
And
Right.
I applaud you for writing a book that everyone can consume.
Well, it was interesting. Thank you, Chris. It was interesting when it came time to find a publisher or an agent. Uh, it was, you know, there's not a lot of interest out there for first-time authors. It's just a struggle. And the one thing I got asked multiple times was, and they hadn't read the book at all, but the concept, they didn't buy
Not a
the
requirement.
concept. They didn't buy the concept of an unknown writing a memoir, I
Yeah.
think. But they did ask me if we'd be interested in a how-to book. And I think there's a lot in publishing. I think that's a real popular genre right now, is how do you make a trailer? How do you market? You know, give us the bullet points. And I do that to a degree in the book, for sure. There's a whole chapter on my process of how to make a trailer step by step. But it's not the book I wanted to write. I really wanted to try to give people an idea of what it's like to work on a movie from the inside, what it's like, you know, the pressure involved with opening a $200 million movie. And how the pressure for a $2 million movie is almost just as great, even though the message you're sending out is different, of course.
Well, that's a great place to start. And Nick, if you're okay with it, I'd love for Jim to just hop in on that. Why is the pressure, and how is the pressure for a $200 million film the same as a $2 million film? You alluded to this earlier, Jim. A lot of our viewers are making $2 million films. So walk us through that.
Yeah. Well, my position for most of my career was akin to some guy, me, sitting on a fence. And on the one side, you have the studio, the people that financed the film, the people who are going to distribute and market the film. They're my colleagues, research, publicity, all forms of marketing disciplines. And there's my boss, the head of the studio, the head of marketing, and they pay my salary.
Yeah.
So I work for them. On the other side of the fence is the filmmakers, who are hired by the studio to make their film, to make their, in some cases, their dream project. As you all know, it takes years and years and years to get to that point. And here they are, they've done it. They've created a film. And I'm the guy standing between these two factions that don't always see eye to eye. They don't always get along. They don't agree. The Filmmakers, rightfully so, are passionate about what they've created. Their jobs on the line in the success of their film, whether it's the actors, the grip, the cinematographer, all the division heads, and of course the producers and the director. So there's pressure coming there. There's pressure coming from my guys, my bosses, and it's up to me to find a way to get the film open on Friday night, which is hence the name of my book, Opening Weekend. That's marketing's job, is to get the audience most predisposed to go, to actually leave the comfort of their couch and their refrigerator, to get away from Netflix for a minute. Although, certainly that's streaming is also a part of this story as well. But, to get them out of the house and go across town and sit with a bunch of strangers who are coughing and hitting the back of their chair, and it's not as cheap as it used to be to do that. There's tons of options out there for your luxury dollar. And so there's pressure there too. My studio, whether it's Warner Brothers or Castle Rock or, A24 or whoever, whatever the studio that's banking on this film, they're banking on it succeeding. Their job is to, and this is cold, monetize the product.
Mm-hmm.
Boy, is that cold, right? But that's something you hear in any kind of marketing conversation when you have a product, whether you're Apple selling iPhones or bottled water. Yep. It's the job of marketing to monetize the product. So here I sit on the fence, and my job is to create a campaign to get people to go, either to buy a movie subscription, a platform subscription, or buy a movie ticket. And finding compromise is usually one of the things we have to do. We have to kind of bury our own feelings and our own feelings about the product, the movie. That can never show. Never.
But Jim, is compromise the birth or the death of creativity?
Well, I think it's the death, but nevertheless.
The honesty.
But remember,
the honesty. I love
it. But remember, like you said, he's got two sides of the fence. Okay?
No hesitation.
Right, and creativity is on one side, and business is on the other.
On the other, yeah.
That's right.
Show business.
Right. Yep. It's show business. It's not show art. That famous line. There's some excitement in that too. Is trying. I'm a pleaser. I think you got to be a pleaser in the job that I've had for 35 years. And I want to make everybody happy. Is that possible? No. Can you try? You never stop trying. And there's other elements that come into the process, research being one, and we can talk about this later. One of the greatest complaints, for example, of trailers today is, what is it, Nick? Tell me. I'm going to quiz you. What's the biggest complaint you have about trailers today?
Oh, don't get him started.
Oh man. Well, because I have one that is new. But I would say for me, there's actually two things, right? So one is they can give parts away of the movie that I'm just like, yo,
you bet.
Right, that's too big of a piece for you to share, because now you spoiled it for me. Like that was really exciting reveal that you just revealed in the trailer, right? That was one. And I think the other one today for me is you're actually seeing a lot of trailers cut for films, and I feel like maybe there's too many of them.
Yeah. And those both of those are relatively new issues.
Yep.
What I thought you were going to say, and you kind of did say it, is they're too long. They tell me too much.
Yep.
And the reason for that has a lot to do with research. That's my theory. There's nothing you see that hasn't been tested and tested, whether it's a TV commercial, a trailer, a digital ad, a billboard, a poster. They've been tested. The studios have to know what the consumer thinks before anything goes out to them. So, my students complain a lot about what you're complaining about. Same thing, it's very common. So, there's another issue that comes in, and actually, research could really help me as I sit on the fence between these two dogs nipping at my heels, working their way up. And, I could sometimes take research and say, here's what the consumer thinks. I know both sides of the fence care desperately about what's going to work.
Yeah.
Because we all want the movie to open. That's the one common thing you can say. And so sometimes research, it's a double-edged sword. It solves some of my problems. It becomes the arbiter in this process. Yet, after the consumer looks at a trailer and says, you want me to spend $14 on a movie ticket and you didn't tell me enough. So you better tell me more. And that's why trailers are too long. That's why they tell too much. That's my theory. That's Jim's theory. So the original question was, where does the stress come from? I hope I'm starting to
Right.
illustrate where it is.
Illuminate the stress. Yeah.
Careers are on the line. Lots of money is on the line. Credit matters. Credit, blame. There's a tremendous fear in Hollywood, and the fear has really infiltrated the studios and marketing in particular. The fear of failure. It's still competitive as all get out. The studios are going at each other every weekend. So lots of money going at it. There's a chapter in my book about a particular weekend where Warner Brothers opened The Perfect Storm against The Patriot. This was the year 2000, I believe.
Perfect Storm has Mark Wahlberg in it, right?
Yeah, Mark Wahlberg had a guy named, also a guy named George Clooney.
Yeah, there you go.
Neither were stars at the time, but this competition was really a pivot point, I think, in the business and certainly in my career, where it is the perfect example of the stress that you originally asked me about. This thing almost put me in the hospital.
Wow.
Because what happened was this was the biggest weekend of the year. It was a 5-day 4th of July week, the biggest movie-going week of 2000, and usually the biggest movie-going week of any year.
Yeah.
And these are two huge movies, one coming from Warner Brothers, Perfect Storm, and Sony, Columbia, had The Patriot, with the biggest movie star in the world in it, a guy named Mel Gibson.
Yep.
Opening a movie about the Revolutionary War on July 4th. So that was big competition for The Perfect Storm, based on a fairly popular book, true story. And spoiler alert, everyone, a story where everybody dies in the end.
Oh, yeah.
So there is lots of, we both had marketing challenges in both films, but the one thing that happened, neither studio was willing to move. So it created...
You mean move their release dates?
Move their release date.
Got it. Okay.
So consequently, this was the press loved this. They were scratching their heads at the stupidity of two films basically cannibalizing one another on this incredible opportunity of 5 days in the summer where everybody's out of school, they're on vacation. It's a huge opportunity to score big at the box office.
Right. Yeah.
And long story, I'll try to shorten the story up a little bit.
No, you're good. You're good.
The tracking came out. So tracking is research that kind of predicts how a film is performing in its marketing more than anything. The film hasn't opened yet, but there's questionnaires that goes out to the consumer. It's a survey, and you get a pretty good indication, and it's usually pretty accurate. It's based on political polling, so
How
take that for what it's worth.
who do they
You know how
contract?
accurate that is, right? So
Who do
Right.
they contract for that, Jim? Like to do that polling?
National Research Group is the company that
Oh,
instigated it about 50 years ago. A guy named
got it.
Joe
Okay.
Farrell and Catherine Pora created this company, and they were pretty much a monopoly back then. Now there are other companies like Screen Engine and
Mhm.
others that are in this business, and it's a good business because it's really the only scientific apparatus we have in marketing that gives us some kind of indication of if our message is working.
Got it.
So I cut a teaser for The Perfect Storm that just blew the socks off of everybody. I was so proud of it. I actually went to the theater to watch it play in my, I live in Manhattan Beach, California, and I went, a mile from here to the ArcLight Theater in Manhattan Beach to just
Yeah.
sit in the back of the theater and watch this teaser trailer play, which was full of action, and the sound was incredible. And we Nick, you would love this. We didn't tell too much at all. We only gave an indication of the excitement and the
Mm-hmm.
adventure. And I came out of that theater. I went to the lobby and I jumped up into the air and screamed. I was so happy that we had a hit. I knew we had a hit because I could see the reaction it got in my little theater, and I figured this is happening around the country. And man, I can't wait for this movie to open. So tracking usually starts 3 weeks before you open, and the
Okay.
tracking results came out, and guess what? The Patriot was kicking our
Yeah.
asses.
Mel
We
Gibson.
were just not appealing for some reason. Why? Tracking doesn't tell you that. But it was apparent that Mel Gibson's star power was working, and our message, based on tracking, based on tracking, wasn't working.
Mm.
So the next 3 weeks, I didn't go home, and that was stressful.
Mm.
And you're trying everything known to mankind to try to figure out a message for all demographics, because don't forget, these are two incredibly expensive films.
So they want to be 4-quadrant films, basically.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
When you have a movie that costs $100 million, and this was 2000, so this would have been probably twice that today.
Right. Or
Right.
more.
Mm-hmm.
You spend a lot of money to make a movie. You have to make a lot of money to make it back, to make a profit. So here you have these two massive studios. The press is all over that. Articles in the paper. This hardly ever happens. Nobody talks about marketing and things like that in the press. Well, they did about this one.
Mm.
And it just created incredible pressure on both studios, not just me, of course. Sony was feeling it, but they had good tracking. So they were feeling very confident, and we weren't. And the director Wolfgang Peterson hired a producer's rep to be his watchdog to the Warner Brothers marketing department. So he was there to criticize what we were doing and to watch us and to demand that we leave no stone unturned. And by George, that's what happened. We spent an enormous amount of money cutting television commercials up until the minute this movie opened. So my back went out.
Mm.
I couldn't get out of bed.
Wow.
I felt terrible and worn out and beat up. And the thing that really got me more than my back or anything else is I felt that I had earned a certain amount of trust from my studio and the filmmakers that was now gone.
Mm.
I had had enough success in my job that I felt like, hey, come on, have a little faith here. We got a teaser that worked. I saw it with my own eyes. I've opened movies before. Come on, don't give up. But they, of course, nobody cares about me or my back, nor should they. Nor should they.
Maybe they should
They've got
care.
they've got they've got careers riding on this. They've got
Right.
tons of money. They got shareholders, So much bigger issues at stake here. And long story short, my back, got better. I came back to work. I gave it the good old college try, and lo and behold, the movie opens, and we kicked their ass. We doubled their box office.
Wow.
Tracking was incorrect.
Wow.
Tracking had a wrong.
And
That's a great
and I
point.
felt good, but I felt things are changing in marketing in Hollywood. I feel it.
It's
You know,
this blind faith in the big data, big analytics,
absolutely,
and your sense
absolutely.
that the data has to be more correct than your artistic creative intuition. The data just doesn't understand human beings, and there are domains where data is perfectly suited. We work with data all the time just here on the show, but like
Yeah,
there's a part of it where it's like, yeah, I don't care what that says because I don't trust the source that it came from. I think the source is manipulated that's feeding that data. What's happening right in front of our eyes, right? Let's check the weather on our phone instead of step out on our porch. That's the idea. And it's like,
yeah.
no, just step out on the porch. What does it feel like to you?
No, and Chris,
You know?
this is killing me because what precedent did this set?
Yeah.
Because the question becomes, was the data wrong, or did the pressure that they put on the marketing team result in a success?
Result in a
And
success. Yeah.
therefore, the precedent that gets set is put as much pressure as you can on the marketing team, and we can be successful.
Yeah.
Oof.
Yeah. Don't let them lay back.
Yeah, that's not a
Don't
good
let them see
precedent,
that they don't see
especially
their
if
don't let them see their family.
exactly, especially if the truth of the matter was that the tracking isn't correct. So when you
Mm.
mentioned the political polling methodology, what
Yeah.
you have to know is that when political polls are done, they poll such a small percentage of the population with the suggestion that statistically that poll is statistically significant. So, yes, their numbers came back a certain way, but it was such a small percentage of the population, they probably did not poll the correct percentage, or they didn't have the appropriate demographic or geographic makeup to tell you the truth.
Yeah.
No.
So, anyway, but when you saw that change and that shift, was it away from data that they didn't believe was correct, or was it towards put the pressure on
Oh,
marketing and you'll be
everybody
successful?
believed it. Everybody believed the data completely, to the degree that, and I'm not 100% sure of this, but I had heard that Sony pulled back on their media buy in the last week before release because they felt we got it.
Yeah. The
Confident. Yep.
Why
tracking.
why
Yeah.
spend when we can just take that $5 and put it right back in our wallet?
Yep.
Yep.
And of course, Warner Brothers was doing exactly the opposite. We were spending like crazy.
Wow.
So why did this happen? Full disclosure, in the last week, we started to see an uptick in our numbers.
Mm-hmm.
And so we had a little momentum. And my theory is, and again, it's just a theory. I don't know this for a fact, but my theory is because we were a PG-13 movie and they were an R-rated film,
Mm.
I think that had a huge impact in the end. Because why? We had a larger audience to draw from. Obviously, a R-rated film is 17 and older, and
Hmm.
that's it. Um, we did a good job of selling the action.
Yeah.
Maybe people felt, I know what happened in the revolution. I really don't need to go to
Right.
school.
Yeah.
Who knows what happened in the end, but it was a pretty significant difference in box office.
I still
And
remember the trailer for The Perfect Storm. I still remember it to this day.
do you?
I do. Yeah.
Yeah.
It was incredible. It was awesome. The
It was one of
raging
the.
ocean, the boat, like I see it in my head right now. It was
Do you
great.
remember a certain image from that?
I do. I remember the darkness. It was almost like the color code was in blues.
Yeah.
And
And
black.
well,
Yeah.
you're not gonna. Well, I guess, but like
Yeah.
it was like it was a film that looked, the trailer gave you a sense of ominous doom,
Yeah.
and I think that they it was just a wonder. I remembered who was in it from the trailer. Like, it's Mark Wahlberg, right? Like,
Yeah,
so
you're
so
right.
so
Yeah.
I remembered that, and so I think you guys did a great job. Now, here's what's interesting, Nick. We hear from independent filmmakers the opposite of this situation, Jim, which is, if I just got the opportunity to make the movie I want to make with the studio, they can do whatever they want. I won't get in their
Really.
way at all. And I also think that's bad advice.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
Yeah,
okay,
because they're
maybe I'm gonna step out of the way
they're the
now.
creative.
Yeah,
Yeah, they're expecting the studio to have the platform, right, to build everything from there. So just let me make my creative, and
and
then
I
let them
promise I
do what
won't
they
be. I won't
do.
get in your hair, Nick.
Exactly. Let them do what they do. They're not going to have someone auditing you as you go. Right? So that's the idea, to give it away. But remember, our filmmakers also, many of them in the audience that are listening, may not have that studio opportunity,
Right.
but they still have a studio expectation. So they
Right.
still have this expectation that they make the film, and by virtue of the quality of the film, it's going to be successful and people will watch. And we still don't understand that. Like, why would you think that? Like, have you not seen the marketing that these films are doing, that these studios are doing? But
The money
the
they're
independent
spending.
film, the money they're spending, but independent filmmakers, and recently did a poll on it, and people are responding that they spend nothing on marketing. It's like, okay,
Absolutely. Yeah.
I don't get it, but
$0.
$0.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like, what is
I
happening?
used to love working on independent films that cost $2 million because there was a certain amount of pressure that wasn't there. Um, I could do pretty much what I wanted to do. And this happened a lot more, obviously, at my career at Castle Rock,
Hmm.
where half our releases were of an independent style. And when I went to Warner Brothers, particularly on Perfect Storm, that all changed.
Yeah.
They couldn't afford to trust me, and
Yeah, risk.
and yeah, and I miss that freedom you have to really put out something that's leave something to the imagination.
Right.
I think people want that, like that. It's the way Hollywood was created, frankly, with the moguls going with their gut. There was no NRG research, there was no tracking. That's our desire, I think, today is, gosh, wouldn't it be great if this was more of a gut business? But
Well, let me
it's
ask you.
not.
Let
It's
me
never
jump in on
going
that.
back either.
Let me ask you, Jim. All right. So you mentioned the trailers, right? And like, what was the thing that annoys me? But there was this one thing that I wanted to mention that I don't know how I feel about it. I really want to know how Sam feels about it. I've been keeping this from him. Um, so here's the deal. So we talked about, like, you want something
Trail.
kind of left to your imagination. Have you seen what Craven the Hunter is doing right now? They have released the first 8 minutes of the film. It's not a trailer. You get to watch the first 8 minutes of the film. I'm not doing it. Like, I'm not gonna. My son wants to watch that movie. We're gonna watch it together. I'm not gonna watch the first 8 minutes right now. But here's the deal. Before you get in, I know
Okay, yeah,
you look
no,
at him. He's
yeah,
chomping at
yeah,
the bit.
yeah.
The thing that Jim mentioned was, hey, look, guys, everything is supported by research. Everything is supported by data. This isn't
Yeah.
something that someone's stepping out on a whim doing. So, what is this research that is telling them that people want to see the first 8 minutes of a film in order to watch it? It's crazy to me.
Well, what I'm just gonna say is, I saw there's a new animated Lord of the Rings
Yeah, I saw that.
on the way. It did the same thing. They released the first 8 minutes from that as well. Um, what I think is interesting though is usually from what I know and from what I've seen, they release the first 8 minutes as part of like the home video marketing. So it's interesting to see that it's shifting back into right before theatrical release. My theory would be because there's a lot of like releases in that kind of field around the holiday. They want to try and get that real actual taste of what the movie's like out there. It's just strange to me that it's not a scene and that it's literally the beginning of the movie.
The whole.
Exactly.
Yes.
Exactly. Yeah, it's
It's the first
strange.
8 minutes. So here's my thinking, right? Without the data to back it up. It's just the fact that there's so much content out there to be consumed that the battle now is for you. Well, it's always been for your attention, but never like this. So I'm going to give you the first 8 minutes because then you'll be invested. You're not really invested in a trailer, especially if they give away all these various pieces of the film, right? Oh, okay, I see what you already gave me the spoiler. Dude turns into Red Hulk. Okay, cool. I got that, right? Like, it's done. That's the thing I was waiting for. I wanted to see who was going to be Red Hulk. But now it's like, no. Let's give them the first 8 minutes. They're going to want to see the rest of it. You've already started. Why would you stop? High quality, right? You're going to have great actors. You're going to have a lot of violence, right? It's like you're going to be hooked. And because you're hooked, you're going to watch.
Right.
Or is it that after the strike, there were new definitions for what a view is, and if you can get somebody to watch 8 minutes, then those streamers that do actually pay a residual, now they have to pay up because 8 minutes means you watched it.
YouTube.
Can I give you the studio point of view?
Go for it, man. I want to hear it.
This is familiar. It happened when I was at the studio, and it came out of desperation. They're panicking. They've done everything they can. They've cut a trailer. It didn't test well. They've tested the movie. It's not testing well. How on earth are we going to monetize this product, they say? Well, we better show them some of the product. That's all we have left.
Yeah.
And it's tantamount to something that the studios
Costco.
used to do. And I still see it every once in a while, and it just makes me ill when I see it. After you've opened a film, I'm sure you guys have seen this before, a testimonial spot. You heard of that?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Somebody that comes out of a movie theater in the lobby and there's a camera and they're saying, oh, it was the greatest thing since sliced bread. I was so afraid it scared the daylights out. That's the indication that you got a real bomb on your hands. And you better, this is the last straw.
I love the inside baseball of that.
This sounds like the last straw to me. It's the last thing that the studio can do to drum up interest in their film. Honestly.
Wow.
Now, I might be wrong. I don't know much about this film you're talking about, so maybe I'm wrong.
No, you might be right because this is part of, I think, Craven is part of the Marvel universe, and they've been having some challenges in that space as of late, particularly because of their series, not as much because of the movies, but they've been hurting, and I think that they've turned off a significant part of their audience, I guess. But the challenge with this film, at least in my mind, is that film is totally different from what they've been doing recently. Like, it is what people want. I mean, there's so much violence in this thing. Like, that's
rated R.
What they want to see. Those 8 minutes delivered that, and so maybe it will work.
Yeah,
if it really looks different than the Marvel brand looks, then that's probably a good reason to do it.
Yeah, and they did well with the trailer.
Check the research at the end. Once it's done, we'll say Papa Bear circle back on that. How did it end up doing? And then we'll report it to the audience. It's the best we can do. Speaking of reporting to the audience, by the way, Jim, I want to circle back before we get off this conversation about marketing for that $2 and $3 million film. But in the meantime, beforehand, let's turn it over to intern Sam for some audience polls. Sam, please take it away.
All right. So we got 2 polls here tonight, as usual.
Normally there's 4.
There's not normally 4. By the way, there's 2. Yeah. But there are 2, and
tell me that doesn't feel like
What is happening?
Sorry. Go ahead, Sam.
That'll be in the show.
Exactly. Unless I can mute that out. Like, go ahead, Sam.
It's all good.
Please. Yes, continue.
So we have 2 polls. They are related. They should also strike a chord with you, Jim. The first one, and this is posed to the audience, is do you watch movie trailers? So coming in at number 1, and I actually agree here, is 68% said sometimes, 17% said always, and then 15% said never.
15 said never.
Which I respect. I do respect that. I try to avoid as many trailers as I can.
You don't watch trailers, right, Sam? Like you're you're
Sometimes
an anti-trailer guy.
to the point.
Is that fair to say?
It's fair, because to the point where I will risk being late to the movie to avoid as many trailers as I can.
Wow.
It's just because I see everything. I don't need to see the ad. I'm going to see the movie anyway. Yeah.
Okay.
So you might be an outlier, right? Like some people, like I don't know many people who would risk being late to the movie to miss the opening trailers. Like, but the cool thing about that comment from you is that you are in the most in demand demographic in movie business, like 19 to 24-year-old male. Like they're making movies for you specifically. And so if there's more people like you in your demo, Sam, like studios want to know that.
Mm-hmm.
So
yeah, but and Chris, I never thought about this before Sam mentioned it because I thought it was weird. So my son loves trailers, so we watch trailers every day. And then we go to the movies and he wants to get there and watch the trailers, right? So we get there, we're early, we sit down, we watch the trailers. And more often than not lately, he and I are sitting in the theater and it's like, it's empty. And we're like, we know that this theater is not supposed to be empty because we got the tickets. We saw what seats were reserved. And then people start piling in like right before the movie starts. And I'm thinking like, were they eating dinner and they were late? Like, did they not know that the movie starts at this time? Never put two and two together that they might actually be avoiding the trailers. Maybe not the same way that Sam is, where it's like, I'm consciously saying I don't want to watch them, but the other folks could just be saying that's a waste of my time. I'm coming to see the movie. So I'll be 15 minutes late because it's 15 minutes, 15 to 20 minutes after the start of the movie is when it actually, exactly.
I've never been late.
So that's when,
just want to throw that out there.
Yeah, because 20 minutes, bro, that's all you need.
Exactly.
So it's weird because I never thought about it. I just thought that they were doing other things and they knew that, hey, I still got extra time, but maybe they actually don't want to see the trailers. That's crazy to me.
It's fascinating.
Yeah.
But those numbers wouldn't indicate that. There was only 17%, was it, Sam, that aren't interested in trailers?
15.
But remember,
15%.
15%, but only 17% said
always,
right? Everybody else is sometimey.
Sometimes, sometimes and never could end up being in the same bucket, Jim.
Yep.
Right. We might say sometimes and never are kind of the same thing.
Yeah.
And it could be. Now, I haven't been in a normal theater, Jim, that was empty like that. So if Nick had told me that outside the context of the podcast, I would have said that's because you live in shit pie, Maryland, and there's nobody at the theater anyway.
Which I don't.
You know what I mean? And
which I
live in an actual city. You know, so there's people there.
Right.
But now that I hear
true.
Sam say that, it's not true.
I'm not in that part of Maryland, right? That's not a thing. That's not where I am.
Go to shit pie, Maryland.
Yeah, exactly. Well, I could probably find it, you know, but I'm not in
Probably
it.
open up Google Earth and tell us where shit pie, Maryland is.
Right.
It's definitely a part of Maryland for sure. Okay, Sam, awesome. What's the next poll?
The next poll: what is the most effective way to market a film? So number one, I think given the options here, relatively unsurprising, social media with 78%. Then TV with 16%. And then finally print marketing and like brand collaborations at 6%.
Yeah.
Now, does that hold up for you, Jim? Like still to this day, would you include influencer marketing in social media or no? I kind of view it separately, but would you combine them?
I don't. I think it's part of the same world. I think how you watch your trailer, for example, since we were talking about trailers, you watch them online now. You watch them through, your social media platforms and whatnot, and that's how you watch them. You don't go to a movie theater necessarily. Yeah, it's funny. Trailers haven't changed that much over, 75 years. But how they're distributed, certainly, and how they are viewed has dramatically. And that number that Sam gave is even greater than I thought it would be.
Sam, do you see trailers online then?
Yeah.
Or do you have the same policy?
No, so I do. So like generally I do try to avoid it. But for like the Marvel stuff and like the big stuff, I'll check it
Mm,
out. Usually it's kind of unavoidable on Twitter for the most part, honestly.
yeah.
I also do like, and this is where like sometimes in the last poll I think comes into play. Like you can never avoid them all, so I end up seeing them over
You can't
time.
avoid them all,
But
Jim.
yeah, so I
We're gonna
always
get you.
I always see them
Right.
eventually. But yeah,
Yeah.
Yeah, they're gonna chase you all around the internet.
Sam? How do you decide what movie you're going to go see? Is Rotten Tomatoes a tool for you?
honestly, I see just about everything. Like I
Whether a friend says so or not, it doesn't impact you. You just
no,
your ears to the ground and
I really try to keep on top of it. Anything in the conversation, usually favorably. I don't try to see bad movies just to see bad movies. Sometimes I
right.
do. I'm gonna be honest with you. I
Yeah,
gotta check it
yeah.
out sometimes. But
How bad is it?
exactly. That
Yeah.
there's been a few of those this year. I won't lie. That I had to
All
see.
all all growing up, Sam, I was told, or everyone was told, the idea was Howard the Duck was the worst movie of all time. And if you watch the movie, it's not the worst movie of all time. It's better than
It's
a
a
lot
great
of
movie, man.
there's
It's a great.
there's
Come on.
movies, a lot of movies worse than it. Like to me, Freddy Got Fingered is the worst movie of all time.
The
That's
only
the worst.
movie you've ever walked
Why do
out
you
on.
think Howard the Duck, though, has this reputation? And I'm going to also throw out a movie I worked on that's right up there in the pantheon of all time losers.
Please don't say it's Freddy Got Fingered, but
You're
it's
No,
right.
it's not. And by the way, we don't choose the movies we work on. Let me say that
okay.
right
Got it.
now. I was assigned this one, and I had no choice to
So,
do the marketing for a movie called The Adventures of Pluto Nash,
we know that Eddie
starring
Murphy.
Eddie Murphy, a
Yep.
movie that was made for $100 million and made a grand total worldwide of, drumroll please, $9 million.
That's
That's
so
a lot of
insane.
money lost.
Wait. How much did Bowfinger make? Because that movie was terrible.
Let me
That's not. It
hold on,
wasn't
hold on.
It
terrible.
wasn't
It
a
was
bomb.
terrible.
Let me give Jim.
It wasn't a bomb.
Let me give Jim the drum
Yeah,
roll he
man, how
asked
you gonna
for.
give him the later drum roll?
Can
Come
you
on
say
now.
9 million again? So first, say how much it was made for again, Jim, just so the audience gets it.
The Adventures of Pluto Nash was made for around $100 million. It starred Eddie Murphy, big time, obviously,
Mhm.
comedy star, in a space adventure comedy.
Drum roll,
And
please.
it cost
And it made
$100 million, made $9 million worldwide, all around the
Worldwide.
world.
so what
So that's
happened?
Mm.
why that's why Howard the Duck has the reputation it has. Is
Agreed.
it cost a lot of money, and it came from George Lucas,
Yep.
Yeah.
who produced it.
Same thing
So
with Waterworld. Waterworld's not the worst movie in the world. It just cost so much money, and they didn't make its money back, and so it becomes an in-industry thing that leaks out through the industry papers,
yeah,
Variety, etc., where now the public, the viewing public, sees it, and they don't know any better, so they just agree. Well, they're saying it's the worst movie ever, so it must be. Go watch
yeah.
Waterworld. It's not the worst movie ever.
It's
Not even
not.
I
close.
was
Not
seeing
Look.
even
it.
Listen.
close.
I enjoy Waterworld except for the female protagonist. Her acting was terrible. It was terrible. But I will tell you. But it's one of those movies I told you, Chris. Like back when we actually had cable.
Yeah.
And like FX would come on
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
Waterworld would come
Yeah.
on.
Yeah.
That's a show. That's a movie you'd watch. Like
Yeah.
you'd watch it, and then it would flip into Blade, and you'd watch Blade. Like, come on.
It's a
Is it
cool,
what?
cool
Yeah,
concept, man.
it is very cool
By
concept.
the way, speaking of female acting, Sam, this will be of great interest to you for sure. Perhaps to Papa Bear as well. I went and saw the movie Maria. And by the way, Jim, this is the kind of marketing that works on me. Tell me it's like award fodder and then like
Yeah,
award bait,
same here.
then I'm there. So the movie is good, really good. That you, in the sense that you can tell the filmmaker really cared about the film, like wonderfully done, put together, shot, edited, etc. But Angelina Jolie is going to be nominated. Just full stop. She'll be nominated for this performance. It's unbelievable. She's.
Because she sings in it.
I don't. She. I
And
don't.
she took voice
Did she
lessons
really
for
sing?
eight
Was that her
months.
voice?
Apparently, she took voice lessons
Even
for
better.
8 months prior to it, which I just read. And hearing you, Chris, say that Maria is a movie I should see, and she gives an Academy nomination, that's what drives me to the movie theater,
Yep. Same.
is what my friends, who I trust completely,
Yeah.
having known you for an hour,
Yeah.
Right.
I that's what drives me to go. And I'm also a member of the Academy, so I feel like I have to see just about every film.
Yeah.
And Sam, I do not get through every film. I can tell you that. I piece out pretty early on some films that I know I don't like where this is going. I don't like what I've seen so far, and I've
Jim,
heard it's terrible too.
Jim, we're kindred spirits there. Like that's my thing too. Because I value, as Chris knows this, like I
Yes.
value my time
Yeah,
very much. And if I'm in 12 minutes on a film and I'm not feeling it, I'm out, man. I can't. I'm not gonna go any longer than that.
have you have you been told by friends that said, "Oh, Nick, you just got to hang in there for 20 minutes. It really gets going," and
Yeah,
I
no.
hate that.
yeah. Have you? There's this great
That happens in
video.
shows.
I hate that
more
with
than-
Wait, Chris.
shows.
There's a
Yeah.
great video out there on the YouTubes, and where a young lady says, "Ain't nobody got time for that." Right? Like
Exactly.
that's me, guys. Like, ain't nobody got time for that, man. There's so much good stuff out there. Why would I waste any more time on this?
Can
And
I give you the
go ahead.
counterfactual on it?
Yeah, go for it.
Deer Hunter. Great movie. First 30
Okay.
minutes
Yeah.
are a drag. It's just a wedding party.
Mm,
All
go ahead,
right,
Sam.
I'm gonna throw one on, and this is a case study in all my classes.
Mm-hmm.
The Shawshank Redemption.
Yep. Love that
What?
movie.
So
Everything
I
about
showed-
that
I
movie
showed
is
it, so I
phenomenal.
it's phenomenal.
Yes.
Everything
But
about it.
the
Unbelievable.
first 20 minutes, I show this film in its entirety on the big screen in my classroom. I have the coolest classroom ever. It's just surrounds 5.1. It's incredible. And the students had never seen the movie.
Hmm.
They're not like Sam.
Right.
They haven't seen enough movies.
It's only one Sam.
That's right.
And I give them the full experience of this film on the big screen. And I do worry as I watch it with them, and I watch it every time
Hmm.
because I love it. And it's IMDb #1 for the last 5 or 6 years. It's beloved
Yeah.
for good reason.
Yeah.
The playability of that film is not to be believed. It's fantastic. But the marketability of that movie was not good, and it did not open.
Mhm.
I know because I was in charge of marketing The Shawshank Redemption. So I'm digressing just a little bit. I wanted to get to the part where the first 20 minutes of Shawshank would scare the bejesus out of my students.
Mm.
Okay.
Because it's brutal. It's
Yeah.
violent. It's dark. It's oppressive. It's nothing good happening to Andy Dufresne. Let me tell you that.
If you had to
You
do it
know, and
over
you just
again, though,
get a
Jim,
sense
would
of-
you do something differently?
Sorry.
If you had to do it all over again, would you do something differently?
How?
What would you do differently to market it better?
Well, let me.
Or differently?
It didn't open because it was a platform release, and our per screen average wasn't big enough,
Hmm.
Okay.
and we were banking on people loving it, word of mouth, adding screens as this word of mouth built, reviews. When reviews really mattered back then, they did matter in 1994. You get the Siskel and Ebert 2 thumbs up. You're
That was
right,
huge.
pretty. But 33 screens grew to more screens, and the per screen average just did not go up at a rate that was satisfactory to us. Not even close.
Hmm.
It took Academy nominations to bring it into profitability, but I didn't open the movie. My job was to get as many butts in seats opening weekend, and so I failed. I failed that, and believe me, it's one of the great talking points in the book. It's one of the great talking points I believe in my classes, because it's a great playability versus marketability. They're not the same thing. How people feel about a film and what draws them to actually put their good money down to go see it. And boy, Shawshank Redemption had so many challenges, and I'm sure you can you've all seen the movie. I'm sure you can probably come up with about 10 right off the cuff, including the title,
Right.
which
Shawshank.
which
Yeah.
the
Yeah,
press
yeah.
really the press really blamed the title.
Yeah, I was gonna say that. That
They
was
didn't
the
blame
one
me.
thing. Yeah, that was the one thing that I would say that you would change. But
Well,
I'm glad
but
that
if
I'm
hindsight's
glad that you
2020,
didn't.
Nick, you know, like
No, but I think
what
at
would
the
you
time they
change?
probably knew.
Because you
I
can't
think they
title,
knew.
could you? Or I
I
guess you
think they
could.
knew at
Yeah.
the time, right, that Shawshank was a tough title.
Yeah.
But I think for me, what I love so much about it, the fact that it wasn't changed, and I know
Yeah.
it didn't feel
Yeah.
good then, is that there is no other film like with that title. Like
Right.
it sets
True.
itself apart from
True.
It's iconic.
everything else. Everything else, yeah, exactly. It's
Mhm.
iconic. Everything else has a title you'd expect. A title that when you hear it, you know exactly what it's about. Whereas
Well, yeah,
Shawshank
it's in our
Redemption,
lexicon now.
exactly, you don't quite know, but
Yes,
it sets
exactly.
itself
You
apart.
hear
So
just
yeah,
Shawshank, nothing else. You know
You
what we're
know,
talking about.
yeah, it's in the zeitgeist.
yep,
I
It's
always think of
exactly.
Poltergeist when Poltergeist came out. I remember hearing nobody can pronounce it.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Nobody knows what a poltergeist is.
Right. What is this
You
German
know,
word?
but it managed to open you guys. You know, so
No,
they
people went looking
succeeded
it
in
up,
getting
man.
around that problem.
No,
I
no, no.
didn't.
You no. You know why they got around that problem? Like you know better than I. When did that movie come out? When did
Poltergeist was
Poltergeist come
scary,
out?
man. 83, 84, 84. PB, when did Poltergeist come out?
Oh, look.
We're going.
Let's just. Yeah, he's looking right, but let's just say it's in the 80s. So here's the deal: in the 80s, our parents did this wonderful thing. You'd say, "What the heck is a poltergeist?" And they say, "Go look it up."
Yep,
And
yep,
that's
yep.
what we would do. So we were educated. We
I
opened
think
up.
your
Oh, that's a
reporter asked.
ghost.
82.
See, there you go.
Reporter
82.
asked
I
that.
was so close.
We
Produced
all.
by Steven Spielberg was also a part of the
Do you
campaign. It
really
wasn't.
think that helped, Jim?
Yeah, I do. I do.
Well, also
I do.
Poltergeist was scary as
And
crap,
a
man.
good campaign. It was a great campaign. It really
Yeah,
was.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
It was
It
If
very
was.
you
scary
very
and
scary at the
creepy.
time. I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't even know if it
Hey,
holds up as scary anymore
l-
because TVs don't go off anymore.
hey,
But
little
like
girl in
back in the
front of
day
the
when
TV.
TV went off, when the TVs actually went off, like if you were a kid, that
That's
scared
funny.
the bejesus out of you, to use one of your words, Nick. Okay.
There you go.
Hey, let's pay some bills. Sam, thank you so much for your polls and your insights as usual. When we come back, we'll do some things we should know. Hey everybody, Chris here, and this episode is brought to you by the feature film Midas Man. What is Midas Man? Midas Man is the first, final, and most respectful cinematic portrait of Brian Epstein. Based on an original story, Midas Man explores the life of a man who struggles to find his place in the world. Brian Epstein is celebrated today as the visionary who signed the Beatles and creating the blueprint for modern artist management. Throughout the film, Midas Man traces Brian's life from his formative years to his meteoric success and the ensuing chaos as he managed some of the biggest acts in the world. The film delves into his close relationships with family and friends and his lifelong search for love, set against an extraordinary period of cultural change. It reveals the untold story of one of history's most remarkable outsiders. Though managing the Beatles was perhaps his most viable role, it was only a part of the 1,000 lives Brian Epstein lived in just a few short years. And without further ado, I'd like to show you guys a trailer of Midas Man, which you can watch on the Olyn Network. That's OLYN. So you get there, OLYN.com. You can also find it some other places as well. But be sure to support Midas Man, support indie filmmaking, support filmmaking in general. Promise you won't be let down by it. So enjoy this trailer.
The Cavern Club, Liverpool. The moment my life changes forever and everything suddenly becomes so clear.
May I come in?
Oh, if you do, one of us will have to come out.
Time to shine. Those boys will be bigger than Elvis.
How was that, Mr. Martin?
I think there's some promise.
Some promise.
Back to the show. Producer Papa Bear, why don't you come on, man? Come on and bring us some things we should know. We're ready to be
That's your
confounded.
Southern drawl,
Yeah.
Chris. Is that
Yeah.
what that was? Come
Yeah.
on, man.
Come
Like,
on.
come on
Come
now.
on, man.
Yeah.
Come on, man. I wonder if
Maybe.
I need to bring in a certain, demographic with this too. All right.
I get it. I
Yep.
get it.
There you go.
Odd as it might seem, before we get to things we should know, I would
Mm.
like to ask Jim a question about trailers.
Absolutely not. He is our guest. No, I'm just kidding. No, I'm just kidding. Go ahead, people.
Well, Jim, earlier you said that, you don't get to pick the films you work on. You're assigned a film.
Hmm.
And so I would imagine a trailer maker, the first thing you do is you go and you watch the film. And how many times do you have to watch a film? Have you had to watch a film before you get to that point where, okay, I've got it. I think I know what to do with this. And
Yeah.
what is that
Good question.
process?
Yeah. Well, we actually usually get a script.
Good question.
So we actually read the script first, more often than not. Then the movie is made, obviously.
Hmm.
The reason we read the script first, by the way, is sometimes we're asked to cut something like a teaser trailer
Oh,
that doesn't include any footage from the film because it's being shot. We don't have anything, So that's happened more than
That's
once
fascinating.
in my career. But back to your original question about how many times do you have to go through a film to cut a trailer? The number is a lot. It's a lot. When I start on a trailer, I go through it once and watch it just as you would watch it in the theater, for the joy of it, to see what kind of impacts me as a audience member. I might take a note. I might not even take a note.
yeah.
And then it's time to go to work, and I sit at my Avid and I watch the movie again, and I start isolating the moments that I think could make a good trailer.
Hmm.
And one of the great fallacies of trailer making is, they just take the best moments from the movie and string them together randomly and throw some music on there, and out she goes. That, of course, is not true. You want scenes that are impactful for sure, but it's really about puzzle pieces, finding those puzzle pieces, putting them in an order that is intriguing, that hopefully doesn't give away the store.
Mm-hmm.
And and you have to watch the movie certainly more than once or twice to make sure you've got those puzzle pieces. Sometimes you're missing something. Sometimes you even go back to a filmmaker and say, especially if they're in production, hey, would you mind shooting me a little something special where the actor says yada, yada, yada? Because I really need this piece of information in my trailer.
That's great.
Or you do an ADR line and you play it off camera. So you never stop reviewing the movie. It's usually changing too. I've worked on films that have been 5 hours long, the first cut, and on their way to 90 minutes.
Wow.
That's a big cuts going on there.
Right.
And then the last thing I want to mention, even though it wasn't in your question, since we're talking about trailers, is the importance of music.
Yeah.
To me, it's as much as 80% of the game. And the reason for that is it's the emotional hook that it brings. And music makes you laugh in a comedy. You guys know the trick. You stop the music, they say the funny line,
Right.
and bam, a music cue comes in there, so you know where to laugh.
Yeah.
Yep.
And scary music for horror, emotional music for the Shawshank Redemption.
Right.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
It's about hope.
Yeah.
Or so I thought.
Right.
before I bungled it. Yeah.
Right. No, Jim. My favorite thing is, and I'm looking at this wonderful book here. I play with I
Show
tease
'em
my
the
wife
book
about
again,
this
man.
all the time. Oh, I'm gonna show them the book.
Yeah.
There it is.
Okay.
Bring
Look
it
at
on
that.
screen.
It's by Jim Frederick.
So
That is
exactly
me on the cover, by the way, scratching
your head, right? I like it.
Yeah,
I like
wondering
it.
how do I get people to go see this?
Right.
Great.
Well, I will tell you, man, my favorite thing, and I want to do this and Chris will have to maybe create a new segment for me or whatever, because this is my passion when it comes to these trailers, is that I want to do all the trailers like this. Opening weekend, an insider's look at marketing Hollywood's hits and flops by Jim Frederick.
LaFontaine. You're doing Don LaFontaine, Nick. Greatest movie narrator of all time.
Yeah, man, and that's the thing is, like, there's always there's that voice that to me is part of my trailer experience, and I
In
feel
a
like sometimes when I
world.
don't get that,
In a
it's
world.
it's not fun.
Synonymous.
Yeah, but it's not fun for me anymore, right? It's just like I want that because it's fun. Honestly,
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
voice is fun for me. And when I don't get it, it's like, wasn't as exciting. I want to hear
Yeah.
that, Jim Frederick. Like
Yeah.
everything's got to be so dramatic.
The
It's
voice of
wonderful.
God narrator has gone the way of the dodo bird.
Yep, there you go.
My students think it reeks of being sold something.
Mm.
That's what they think. It's just kind of past its wear date.
Bringing it back, Sam.
Yeah,
Sam, I'm bringing it back.
These sort of
We're gonna do it.
I think
Nick,
so.
you're the only one who said something good about
these
it.
changes
I
in
love
generations, Nick,
that.
are
I love it.
they are fascinating, and they hit you, they blindside you because you're living in the world with everybody, but you don't realize something's really changed.
Oh yeah.
In our film, other versions of you. Well, it's another version of you, but it'll soon be other versions of you. Back to its original title, we were sure. So it's a sci-fi romance, and sci-fi rom-com, if you will. So we were sure that young women and young men were going to test for the film. And it turned out that the sentiment in the film was really enjoyed by women 35 to 49.
Older.
Yeah. And so it was like young women didn't vibe with our character and our sentiment of what romance was. It had changed. The sentiment of what a romantic guy is, and it had changed and when you have an assumption so big that doesn't turn out, it turns everything upside down. Like, okay, where do we go from here? What do we need to do? Because like we made this whole movie based on this really young audience liking it, and instead they see the protagonist as someone we didn't even consider.
Yeah.
It's interesting. Yeah. Anyway,
It is.
things we should
PB.
know. Papa Bear.
What you got, PB?
All right. Well, the first film trailer shown in an American theater was actually produced for a Broadway musical production by an advertising manager for the Lowe's theater chain. Did you know? Who was the advertising manager? In what year was the trailer shown? And what was the name of the theater?
Holy cow. We're
Jim.
really supposed to know these answers?
We're not. Right.
Jim, you're supposed to know it.
You're right, not us.
One, just one.
We're not supposed to know it. You are supposed to know.
You see, and it's getting harder and harder, PB. Like there was once upon a dream, we had a chance. Now it's like, bro,
Read the
you're going to
question
parts,
again, PB.
No, he's going to parts of the
Read
Encyclopedia
it again.
Britannica that we don't
I don't
read,
even know
bro.
the question. Read the question again. This is crazy.
I thought perhaps a professor might be teaching when the first film trailer was shown, because it was shown in an American theater and produced for Broadway musical performance.
Okay, it's Broadway. Okay.
By an advertising manager, much like Jim, for the Lowe's theater chain.
Okay. It's a Broadway.
Who was that manager?
Okay, we need manager.
The first trailer.
Do you know the name of the movie? Can I give you my guess on that?
Well, here's what you're missing on the carefully worded question.
It's for a Broadway.
It's for a Broadway musical.
musical.
So I do know the name of the Broadway musical.
Okay, so so do we have to guess the manager, the musical, and the year? Is that right?
No, he said the theater.
The theater.
The theater and the manager.
Where the first
there's three
film
things you have to
trailer,
guess then.
it's a film trailer, but it was produced for a Broadway musical.
Got it.
And
you're asking us to know the theater, the manager, and what else?
That had
the year. In New York, right? The theater.
It is.
Yes, it's a Broadway. It was a Broadway play.
I mean, that was the big tip.
Is it
for sure
a famous theater chain or one that still exists?
With Lowe's.
Well, Lowe's is
Lowe's
famous.
was probably before you were born, Sam.
Figured.
Papa Bear, you're asking us. You're asking us to answer three things, right?
Yeah, but you don't have to answer them all. If you can get
what
one of those.
What are the three? Manager, theater, and what else?
Year.
Who's that advertising manager? What year did the first film trailer ever play in a theater?
Okay.
Let's say
And
1917.
oh, that's
1917. That's a
great.
very good guess. I'm gonna guess.
Nick?
I'm gonna guess 1918. Haha,
Okay.
Price is Right. Eh, Nick, do you have a guess on year? 1914.
He's
He's gonna say
looking at it. Look
1914.
at him. Look at his phone.
Yeah, he's
He would not
They
cheat
won't
like
let
that.
me. Yeah, they won't let me.
He always says
Oh man.
1914. Go for it. Don't.
Well, see,
One of these times you're gonna be right.
I was actually gonna go 13, but yes, 1914. 1914.
okay.
It's
Sam, you
weird
got
because
something?
Yeah.
I'm trying to think
Year
about
of,
Broadway. Like
I'm
when
gonna
was like when would they have gone to film from a Broadway show? Like
Yeah.
because it's a film trailer.
it's a
So
film
why would
trailer. Yeah.
so if it's a film trailer, then you had to have a film at some point
Yeah.
of this Broadway movie. So
I don't know.
would the
I don't
Broadway
know.
movie? But it's a
It might
film trailer.
might have
Like,
just
what-
been the
Cross
title of the
promotion.
production and saying, "Come see us." I don't know.
Sam, do you have a guess?
I thought the name of the movie was The Adventures of Catherine, but
Mm,
maybe I got that wrong.
okay.
Okay.
1914. Sam.
I'm going 1922. I'm going a little
Oh.
later.
1922.
The year Nosferatu released. That's my guess.
Okay.
I'm gonna
It's
go
gotta
that the
be a
manager
famous
is
person.
P.T. Barnum.
Yeah, it's got to be someone like very famous. I'll go with D.W. Griffith.
D.W. Griffith is a great guess. Nick, you got anything?
Was he a marketing manager?
I
That's
don't
the
know where,
part.
where he started before he made,
And that's the part for me. I don't know.
I
This one's
know
too-
that
like,
the
I don't-
answer is
I don't
going to be in
know.
this book. The answer is in this book somewhere. By the way, if you want a very highly entertaining book outside of opening weekend, not to promote a second book on this podcast,
By Jim Frederick.
pick up Hollywood Babylon. It is a fast, awesome book. Shout out to Kenneth
It's
Anger.
great. It's great.
Yeah.
I'm a fan of all those books.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't have a guess.
What is it?
All right.
We're obviously stumped.
Yeah.
I'm
All
gonna,
right.
Sam's got something. Sam's got
Sam,
something.
you got something,
I
Sam?
have literally no idea.
Nothing. All right. What you got,
Well,
PB? Let's do it.
There is a hidden clue here. The theater still exists. It's been obviously remodeled. It's right there behind me.
Oh, you
It's-
sneaky devil.
It's the Winter Garden Theater.
Winter Garden. Okay.
Uh-huh. And the marketing manager was Niles Granlund.
Oh yeah.
Oh, look at
And-
Jim. Oh
Jim-
yeah.
Yeah,
I'm all like,
Niles
Granlund.
Granlund,
Who's
of
the
course.
guy?
We know
Who's this
Niles.
guy? Of course. Yeah. Yeah.
No, so Niles. And you should have stuck with it. It was 1913.
Oh, look at that.
Oh!
Look at that. Yeah.
And the name of the musical was The Pleasure Seekers.
The Pleasure Seekers.
Wow.
Pleasure Seekers.
You're right. I should have gotten this.
See, look at
I
that.
show a little history of the movie trailer film in my classes, and obviously not paying attention to it.
Well, it's for them to learn. You've been
Yeah.
there.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
The other day, I pleasured myself to the image of Mrs. Buttersworth.
So I think that was a line from the Pleasure Seekers.
Wow.
Well, I wasn't around in 1913 to see it, even though I might look like it.
Good job, Nick. 1930. So now what's Niles'
1913.
last name? Jim or PB?
Grund. It's a German name, of
Spell
course.
it, please.
Excuse me. Grandlund. Grandlund.
D.
Grandlund.
So for those listening, the theater is the Winter Garden. The ad manager is Niles Granlund.
Grandlund. Mhm.
Granlund, and this happened in 1913. Papa Berry did it again. That is definitely a thing we should know. And
No,
the
no, no.
second
It's a
we bring
thing
this
Jim
up,
should know.
and it's a thing Jim should know.
Yeah,
And as soon as Jim shows up to his next cocktail party, he is releasing this upon the people. Trust
That's
me.
right.
This is
Yeah.
boom. Did you
It's a
know
thing he knows. That's right.
about my friend
I'm gonna
Niles?
quit my teaching job right now. I'm done with it. I have no
You're
right.
fired again.
Yeah.
I have
See,
no
yeah.
right to teach the subject.
That was amazing. PB, thank you so
Yeah.
much for things we should know. Nick,
Great.
You're welcome.
can you drop some filmmaker Q&A? on
Oh, of
Jim?
course, I am ready, man.
I
Chomping
think
at the
Jim's ready
bit,
too. I can
as
tell
Sam
he's
was
ready to
earlier.
go.
Oh, he's
Let's
so
go.
always ready. He's going to redeem himself now. That's what's going on.
Yes.
He's ready. All right, so I've got 5. I'm going to go 4. Okay, so the first one is simple. What is the value of an entry level job?
Wow. Well, You got to start somewhere. I think the value of an entry level job is it's a absolute learning experience. You're probably going to hate it. Um, this is what I preach again to my students. This is what I advise them. Your first job when you graduate or ready to enter the workforce is your first job is to find that job. That's what you should be doing. It almost doesn't matter what it is. The value is, and I'll speak from experience. My first job, and I didn't know anybody, but it was a shipping clerk, entry level job. Paid $100 a week. I starved to death, but it was a shipping clerk at an optical effects company, which doesn't exist anymore. It's how special effects used to be made. You compositing 35 millimeter film together. Now, obviously, that is now done with computers, but back then, it was quite an elaborate process. Even if it was simple as putting titles over a background scene, it required optical printers and lineup men and all kinds of things. So I was the guy who would go to the lab to pick up the film. I would go to the movie studio to deliver it. I would stand at the shipping desk to hand out film, which is how I actually met and married my wife of 37 years. She came in to pick up film one day and she asked me out.
There's a lot of value in that
So
entry
there
level
was a
job.
lot of value in that job.
Yes.
But yeah, it made me, I didn't know Hollywood at all. I came from Anaheim, California, which is down near Orange where I teach. And I got to know the territory. I got to know what people were like in the business. I started picking up very rudimentary skills like how to splice film, how to tape it together, how to use a moviola, which was one of the first editing machines ever made, a thing that could take off your hand if you weren't careful. So I think that's the short answer is I think it makes you aware of this new world. You're kind of, in a weird way, world building, in this first job.
I like it.
How to get along with people.
There
Oh my
you go.
God.
Yeah, that's perfect. All right. So now the second one to follow up to that. Why is it important to stay late?
Oh, well, can I tell you a story?
Sure.
Of course.
This is again, I'm giving away the book again, but my first job in the trailer business was with a company called Intralink, and it was ran by a man named Anthony Goldschmidt, who was one of the, legends in the business for sure. Brilliant guy. And I was more of a technical guy. I had gone from the shipping desk. Yeah, I knew how to edit. I learned how to edit soon enough on a chem, which was a table, a flatbed, they call it. So the technology was improving a little bit. I kept up on that. But my job at the Intralink was more as a finisher. So I would take the finished trailer cuts and make sure they look good and prepared them for either broadcast if it was a television commercial or the big screen. So my job, I got into the business that way. But man, I saw where the fun was. It wasn't doing what I was doing. It was editing, at least for me. And so one day, late, everybody had gone home. I went into Anthony's office and I said, listen, I think I can do this teaser trailer idea that we have, that the company has, that you, Anthony, have for this movie that just came in called The Color Purple. And it was an extremely simple concept of a piece of music done by the late Quincy Jones. Seeley's
Shout
theme.
out to Quincy Jones.
Beautiful, absolutely. Beautiful piece of music. And a bunch of photographs that were shot on set. So stills shot by Gordon Parks, one of the great directors and photographers of all time, in my opinion. And he was hired by Spielberg to be on set and shoot these gorgeous black and white photographs. All I had to do was do my job, which was go and shoot these photographs and do little zooms on certain parts of them and make them look artistic. Take the music and cut in time to the music. Very simple idea. And I said, Anthony, you don't need one of your expensive editors to do this. I'd like a chance, if you would give it to me, to do it. I'll stay late. You're not going to pay me extra for this. I'm not, you're already paying me. And that's kind of my story of staying late, working, showing your skills, showing your ability, delivering after hours, and impressing the boss. And so I did that very thing. I'm sure I pissed off our editors. I cost them money,
Right.
but it was a very simple concept, and that was the very first trailer I ever cut. Was for the Color Purple.
Color Purple. That's amazing.
And it happened
Yeah.
after hours, Nick.
Right there it is. You stay
Wow.
late and you show your value. I think that's it. You show the
It led
value
to a
beyond what
career
they're
as an
paying
editor.
you.
Yeah, it opened the door to editing for me, and I was given the opportunity to do it, and I certainly needed that too. So
That's
yeah,
awesome. All right.
yeah.
So the next one kind of shifts us. We talked about the trailer editing, but you also have, I think, some work that you've done. Again, it's across marketing. So you've got the posters as well, right?
Yeah.
So my question here is, so your posters that I've seen, right, especially the ones that are in your book, the one entitled Opening Weekend. In that book, there you go. You have these posters, and I see that they traditionally feature 4 primary elements. You've got your main protagonists, you have the title, you have a tagline, and then you have the names of your billable cast. Can you just talk about the importance, and maybe even if we go as far as to rank them, but what's the importance of having those 4 pieces in your poster?
Like that.
There it is.
So for those just
it just
listening to
happened
this,
Look
Jim
at
is
that.
holding up his book to a page
Sorry.
that's called "Becoming Kubrick," and it
Yep.
is we're seeing Eyes Wide Shut, the poster here. For those just
Yeah.
listening, yeah.
I apologize for that.
No,
but
it's great.
It's a wonderful example, actually, of the poster you just described, Nick, of having the main characters. The title is essential, I would say. A copy line, I think, is always helpful, and the billing block you're forced to do.
Yeah.
Okay.
If we had our druthers, we would not have any billing, but it's a bunch of guild rules called paid ad requirements that the Directors Guild, the Writers Guild, the Producers Guild, and those trigger the cinematography group and the editing group. So next thing you know, you've got a lot of names at the bottom of your poster, which is all well and good, but those come from legal requirements that our business affairs at the studio drums up.
Gotcha.
So yeah, poster. I think poster design is fascinating. We were just talking about the old days of trailers, and the very first trailer. Well, the posters were almost entirely illustrated back then. And you look around today, and you'll be hard pressed to find an illustrated poster, because photography has just absolutely overtaken it, and the star power. You want to show your stars that you're paying $10 million to be in your movie, and they will draw, hopefully, an audience to come see your film. To me, movie posters don't really work like trailers do. I don't think they're persuasive enough alone to draw you to buy a ticket. However, if you have Tom Cruise and Nicole Kidman in your film, who are big stars, and the name Kubrick, who's right up there with them at the same size in the Eyes Wide Shut poster, you could see why the desire for studios is to utilize these movie stars. So back to your original question, Nick. What was it?
So
why are those 3 elements
they're important, but let's shift it a little bit. So many of the people in our audience, let's say they're independent, so they're not going to have elements that you have. So let's just take the star names out.
Absolutely.
Right. So now we're left with a title, a tagline, and your main protagonists, which again, the main protagonists are often your stars, but at least you're featuring them. If you're an independent filmmaker and you don't have that star power, what are the most critical things that you should have in your poster to
Well,
really grab that attention?
yeah, I'm looking at this screen behind you right now,
Mhm.
and I think the Joker, I see Darth Vader. These are not photographs I'm seeing. These are iconic, high con representations of those characters.
Yep.
So they're striking. They grab my eye. They make me
Yep.
curious. Um, that is important if you're an independent filmmaker. Is above all come up with something impactful, intriguing,
Hmm.
that gets people like turning to your friend and say, "You see this? What do you think this means?" You don't want to create confusion. You want to create
Intrigue.
interest. You want to
Should
persuade. Yeah, intrigue.
should we
Yeah,
show
and,
him
and
this
and I
list
think you need to be
of
impactful.
posters, Nick? Should we
Oh,
show
you
him?
talking about the ones that you've got? Oh, well, before you do that and you show him some of the
Yeah,
stuff that
yeah,
you've
maybe
seen,
not
Chris,
because yeah,
I wanted to
we can't
mention to
do that.
Jim, yeah, exactly. I wanted to mention to Jim the beauty of what's behind me.
Yeah, please do.
Yeah, so
He
so
does.
my
I don't think
friend,
he knows.
yeah, and many of our audience may not even know, but yes,
Yeah.
that is not a screen, my friend. That is real. And what that is those are Legos, my friend.
Oh,
Yes.
wow.
So yes, this
Yeah.
is all Legos that I've made of things that
Oh,
I love.
fantastic.
Yep.
Fantastic. I
It's
love it.
it's super
Yeah,
cool.
man. Yep.
I love it.
Yeah, a
You
lot of
should have
people
did
think it's a
the poster for piece by piece.
Oh
oh man,
wow, that would have been a
I
dream.
would have I should have designed the Lego set for that. When I saw it come out, I was like, this is not what you want. But anyway, I'm not gonna go there.
Not to
For
pat
real, that is
ourselves,
there.
not to pat ourselves in the back before you go to the
Mm,
next question, Nick. But we do have a movie with an illustrated poster called Adult Interference, and
that's
it was
right.
one of the coolest things we did in the movie. Actually, was to have the courage to come out with an illustrated poster.
Yeah.
So there you go.
Yeah.
And Kate, you
Go.
can throw that image up if you want to.
She will.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, Harry Potter. Granted, your audience may not give a hoot about Harry Potter and the franchise business that it became, but the last poster of the first film was beautiful illustrated
Mhm.
poster of by Drew Struzan, maybe the world's greatest poster illustrator. Did Indiana Jones, did the Star Wars films, and Chris Columbus, the director, really wanted that vibe for his first Harry Potter film, for Sorcerer's Stone. So people might equate, I think, oh, this is an instant classic right here, because it looks like other instant classics like
Yeah.
that Drew Struzan had done. And that was the last illustrated poster we ever did for Potter. We
Hmm.
but that's another story. But
Okay. All right. Well, here we
yeah,
go.
illustrated posters I think are wonderful ideas for independent films, because you're right, as Nick said, you don't have star power
Hmm.
necessarily. You don't have branded IP.
Yep.
These are original ideas.
Yes.
So it allows you to be, I think, pretty creative. It's hard. It's the hardest thing in movie marketing, to come up with an image that represents your movie. It's really hard. There's no music. There's no dialogue. There's nothing there but a 2D image. So it's very difficult.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So this is the last one. Okay. This is gonna be a fun one for us because this might actually help me, right? If I decide to transition to another job
Ooh.
at some point, right? Never away from Chris, never. All right. So how can you prepare yourself to never take a job for money?
Oh.
Mm.
Well, this is one of the great. It's one of the big themes in my book. Um, and I talk a lot about that. I have a whole chapter that talks about money, and we get into that point. And going back to your very first question of your entry level job,
Hmm.
you're more than likely you're not going to be respected. You're not going to be treated well. You're going to work too hard, especially in the entertainment business, and you're not going to be paid.
Yeah.
Those sound like pretty unattractive things. There might even be somebody who is somewhat abusive to you. And if that ever happens in your first job, your second job, or third job, you leave. You leave. It's not worth it. You're going to be unhappy. You're going to create bad work. Your reputation will suffer because you're creating bad work. you got to love what you do. And
Yeah.
that is the number one recommendation I give to all my students, for example. It's what I would give to you today. Um, it's not easy. My daughter, has told me, yeah, Dad, but people have rent to pay. They have food to buy. They can't afford to quit. They don't want to be known as a quitter. But the alternative is not good at all.
Mm.
And so it's hard to leave. It's hard to quit. It's hard to give up. But if there's no benefit to you in the big picture, and you've got to look at careers as marathons, not sprints,
Mm-hmm.
and this is a short term pulling the band aid off that will have great positive impact for careers down the road. Never take a job for money. I did, I can tell you. I lasted 18 months. I,
Yep.
I, I, I was unhappy.
Yeah.
I got fired. I'd never been fired before. That was a learning experience too. It was awful. It was humiliating. It was in the press, for Christ's sake.
Mm.
But
That's rough.
it opened up so many other doors. I learned so much, and I probably there was probably a reason why they let me go too. No one really told me. Yeah, which is another story. But,
Yeah, well, I think it's important,
look,
especially because we've got Sam here, right, who's going to go on and do wonderful things with us and beyond. And
yeah,
one of the things that I think about in preparing yourself to be ready for that is being, and we'll hear this a lot, be your authentic self, but be your authentic self in public. And what I mean by that is, and this is something that I am still learning at this stage of my life, because I was always a very private person, is that the value of being authentic in public is that you get people rooting for your authenticity.
Mm-hmm.
So if you want to be a poet, a filmmaker, a Lego builder, you let everybody know. Don't just do that stuff in the dark. And the reason that's important is because people are not going to just root for you, but they might support you. So
right.
if you're taking that first job for no money, but for the experience, for learning new lessons, from getting your foot in the door, you might not make as money as you need to eat, right? Like you
Yeah.
mentioned, you were starving, but guess
Yeah.
what? Your parents or your auntie or your best friend who decided to be an investment banker for the money, right? They might just help
We all
you
need
out.
those friends.
We
Yeah.
do. They
Yeah.
might just help you out to just keep you afloat because they know that you're being your authentic self, and deep down inside, they wish they could be you.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. I want to add one little thing onto the authentic self when it comes to being interviewed,
Okay.
because the interview process has become ridiculous. I have two grown children, two daughters. One's in tech, one's in the movie business.
Mm.
And they both have to go through, and as you will, Sam, after you leave this wonderful group, and if you go on to a job where you're interviewed, you know, as Nick says, be yourself. Don't try to be what you think you want them to be. That's a huge mistake that a lot of young people make. I hope I say the right thing. What if I say the wrong? You start becoming someone else. And as long as you're true to yourself, and even to the point where you can say to a question, I don't know the answer to that. Let me find out. That's a great answer.
Yep.
And it's people are terrified to use it. Terrified.
Yeah. Here.
Oh, now I don't know the answer to all their questions. I won't get the job. I don't think that holds.
Yeah. I don't either. Kudos.
Yep.
And that whole last question, Nick, really, I related to it so much. I spent 13 years in healthcare, education, and tech, and I loved the people I worked with. I loved the person I worked for. I still talk to him. But I woke up one day and realized I'd given all my creative energy to some other man's idea.
Mm-hmm.
Mm,
And it was also that creativity was locked in a box because it could only happen inside the walls of his corporation. So no one could even see how much I was giving and doing and how much time I was spending. And I think you're right, Nick. You can be rich in money or you can be rich in time. And I think the person that's rich in time probably wants to have some money. And I think the person rich in money probably wants more time. So it's a little dance you have to play in your life, and you figure it out
Well put.
as you go along. I promised the audience that I would circle back to this. So before
You did.
we wrap
I
up,
remember
I
that
want to make
promise.
sure we circle back to this. Yes, exactly, because I think it's so important. If we're making a $3 million film, Jim Frederick,
Mhm.
what is the best use of our marketing dollars? So we got a $3 million film. Let's say we didn't do the thing where we're going to spend 3 million on marketing because we don't have it. The total film's 3 million, and let's say we set aside. Uh, what would you say, Nick?
Come
50
on.
grand or 100 grand? What's the better number for this example?
Well, I
Maybe
like the
50 grand.
50.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah, I like the 50
50 is more
because
realistic.
that's all they're willing to do, if that, right? So I like to go 50 to stretch it a little bit.
So 50 grand. We made it we raised $3 million. What's the best way to spend that 50 grand on marketing?
Well, Sam's not going to like the answer to this, but and I am coming from a very prejudiced point of view because I am still at heart a trailer maker,
Okay.
and I still believe that is the most impactful piece of material. I'm not talking about how you get it out there, mind you. I'm talking about the message you create that will draw people to your film. That's all I care about. So I think it's well within your budget to hire a great trailer maker, talk to them, tell them your hopes and dreams for this piece.
Mm-hmm.
You want it to be impactful. You want them to draw your target audience in to see your film. That's the most. That's the goal. That's the goal here.
Yep.
And I hate to say this, but filmmakers have a different language when it comes to editing their films. The long form is very different from the short form of a 90-second trailer.
Yeah.
So that's my advice is I would hire one of the best in the business. There's lots of vendors who do that.
Yeah.
There's people working cheaply on their own. It's what I did for 3 years. And I cut a lot of trailers and something called a rip-o-matic, which was a trailer for a film that hadn't been produced yet.
Okay.
Which I think are really important in the independent world.
Write that down. Rip-o-matic.
Mm-hmm. Rip-o-matic is basically you take material from other sources and you deliver the story in the screenplay. And it's used very often for foreign sales, finance, casting.
In pre-pro, yep.
I've cut them for every possible. I've cut small films, huge films where they were trying to coerce The Rock to be in it. So here's this, and it looks and sounds just like a real trailer. It informs you, it excites you. It's way more exciting than reading the script. I'm sorry to say.
Yeah.
And people don't read. They won't take the time to do it. So here's 90 seconds of our movie, of what it's going to look like, what it's going to feel like, kind of who's going to star in it. They're going to look like this. It takes place here. And it's going to drum up these emotions because you picked the right piece of music. So, and it also demonstrates, see how marketable this film is?
Mm-hmm.
Why you should invest $3 million, Mr. Financier, because look how commercial this is. There's an audience for this movie. You can tell just by looking at our Rip-O-Matic. So those are my two answers to your question. Do not underestimate showing a glimpse, the best glimpse, the most persuasive glimpse of what your film will be or is. And that comes from the trailer.
I love it.
And who writes the script for the narration?
For the trailer?
Yes, over the trailer.
Yes, this would be a Nick question. This would be Nick's
They
interest
hire
here.
you to put on your voice of God.
You're right.
I keep telling him he needs to do some voice acting in
Dude,
the short term.
I would
like
love
right
it.
now.
I would love it. Yeah, I would love it.
Well, you've got a great voice, so you could probably get away with it. But the trailers that are done by my students, and they all work on projects in my classes, never do they use a voiceover. It's just, it makes them ill. They use cards.
Mm.
They use
Yeah.
dialogue cut
Yeah.
from the characters, and it's how I used to cut my trailers too. I'm sorry, Nick. I avoided narration as much as I could.
Okay.
No, it's
Well,
just two
like I
different.
said,
It's a style
I'm
You're
bringing
choice.
it
old
back.
school, baby. You're old school. I
Yeah.
love it.
It's a
Yeah.
style
I'm bringing it
choice.
back.
We
Yeah.
might bring it back.
Okay. I'm
Yeah,
on it.
because as soon as something gets too cool, is the second it goes out, and then you got to do
Yeah.
something else, and that's called innovation. We've said that a million times on this podcast. All innovation is the bundling and unbundling of a thing. And so, in the trailer sense of it, we're not doing voiceovers. Now we're doing voiceovers. Look at that innovation. Wait, that's been around forever.
Illustration
Yeah.
and posters. I mean, Quentin Tarantino illustrated Once Upon a Time in Hollywood in a very old-fashioned, nostalgic way, which is right in keeping with his brand.
And it was perfect with the brand of the film too.
Absolutely.
Yep, it made you want to see it.
Absolutely.
It was a really
Great
point.
choice. Great choice.
Well, Jim, you have been absolutely incredible, and we really appreciate you giving us so much time. Let us end how we typically end these things with the question: what does it mean for you to make it? What does making it mean to you?
I love the name of your show, and I want Papa Bear's T-shirt.
Okay,
Yeah, we can make it happen.
done.
I love that. I love that.
We will mail it to you.
Yep.
You know, I think I'm gonna I'm gonna steal from Nick. I think it means being true to yourself, and in my career, for the most part, never 100%. I was allowed and chose to follow my gut, my instincts. I believed in my ideas. I was fortunate enough that I got to execute those ideas with the hope that I could make people happy with it, whether it was consumers who would see it, my bosses who pay me, the filmmakers who I'm representing in a sense. I'm representing their hard work. So that's making it for me, was having that opportunity and succeeding to a fairly good degree, I would say. And it goes for the book too. I set out to write a book. I didn't do what other people were asking me to do, make a how-to book on trail. I didn't want to do that. And so I didn't. And I think as long as you do that, and I'm turning it into advice now, and I don't mean to do that, but follow that gut as long as you can, because there will come a point where someone, a bigger voice, will come in and play with your vision. Whether you're a filmmaker, whether you're a marketer, it doesn't matter. They'll toy with it. They'll disagree with it. Mm-hmm. They'll want to change it. And you gotta stick to your guns. You gotta believe it. You gotta believe in your idea. And for the most part, I think I was able to do that in my career, and that makes me very happy and very proud.
Love it. Kudos
Yeah,
to you,
it's
man.
awesome. That's awesome.
Congratulations to you on the book. Can you tell everybody where they could find you? Find you on social media, find you on the internet, but then also find your book and buy it.
Yeah, here I am hawking the book, not a movie. It's been an interesting process. Thank you, Nick. The book is very readily available to everyone through Amazon. You can get a Kindle through it, ebooks. The audiobook is available there as well. Or you can go right to the publisher, which is University Press of Mississippi, UPM. Great people. They did a wonderful job making a book that I really asked them to go out of their comfort zone to do. That includes 125 movie posters and stills, color stills in it. It was asking a lot. We needed to go to the studios to get the rights to be able to kind of support the stories I was telling about behind each film and the marketing of each film. Yeah. So I do think there's lots of different things that the book offers. I think advice to young people, no matter what business you're going into. I think it's fun to read about maybe your favorite movies that are in there and what went on behind the scenes. I write a lot about all the Harry Potter films. The story about Eyes Wide Shut is perhaps my favorite chapter. I was brought into that after Stanley Kubrick died. And the studio had no ad campaign because Stanley Kubrick created all the ad campaigns for his films.
Wow.
Not many people know
Wow.
that.
I didn't.
The studio didn't. So I was called by Terry Semmel, the head of Warner Brothers, one afternoon as I was driving home, and he asked me to get on a plane the next day and to fly to London to see a movie no one had seen. Virtually no one had seen it. Lots of controversy around it. Two major stars in it.
Yeah.
What's going on? You know, Stanley Kubrick. Everybody wants to know what his next film is going to be. And I had to come back to Burbank with a couple of trailers and a movie poster and some TV commercials within a week. So that story's in there, and I think it was the most memorable story I've ever been through in my career. So that's in the book. That's my little teaser for the book right
I
there.
like it. Well
You
done.
can get it on Amazon very readily, and I think any moviegoer will find something in it that speaks to them.
Beautiful. Beautiful. And then any social media handles, any websites for yourself personally, any email you want to give if people want to reach out to you with questions directly?
Boy, that's a good question. I am on Facebook. I am on LinkedIn. I'm on Instagram. It is up to me to market this book through those ways. I'm not very good at it, to be perfectly honest. One student has offered to be a social influencer on this,
Hey, I like it.
which is great. I would mention my website is kind of fun to go to because it has my career in there, and it also has every trailer and every poster that I've worked on. Not every, but only the good ones.
Yeah.
In there.
Smart man.
Smart man.
The Adventures of Pluto Nash is there.
Okay.
You know, and that website is Jim Fredrick, Fredrick, marketing.com.
All right.
And the website is kind of fun to go through and see all the various posters, and again, watch the trailers that are heavily named in the book, and it's kind of a nice little companion, I think, to reading the book.
I love it. You heard it from the
That's
man
great.
himself. Go pick up his
Yep.
book. Opening weekend at Amazon. You can buy it hard copy. You could buy on Audible. I love Audible. You can get it on Kindle. No excuse not to get
Barnes
it.
and Noble.
Barnes and
It's at any
Noble.
bookstore.
All
You can order it.
boom. Everywhere you can get books, find books, you will find Opening Weekend by the one and only Jim Frederick. You can go to his website at jimfrederickmarketing.com. If you love this podcast, be sure to subscribe, rate, review, do all those things. You can do that on Apple, Spotify, and of course, YouTube, where we would love you to sort of transition over here and see what we're doing on video if you're on audio only. But if you like the audio only thing, we're still making a great podcast over there for you as well. So all those ratings, reviews, subscriptions, they really matter because they help us with discoverability and reaching larger audiences so that we can educate, entertain, and inspire new and ever greater audience of filmmakers and film lovers and film enthusiasts. If you want to reach out to Nick directly, you can do that in his email at nick@bonsai.film. You can ask him any questions you would like. Maybe you have some ideas for filmmaker Q&A that he can present to our future guests. That's a really good way to use the email. If you want to reach out to me, you can hit me up directly on X, formerly Twitter, at Flame in Your Heart. Your is spelled U-R, or you can just search for Chris Barkley, and I should be one of the two people that come right up. I found out there's an author in the UK, Nick, that is spending some marketing dollars, and he stole my name. He's like this Scottish author that's, you know, there's a lot of Chris Barkleys doing a lot better than me. I'll just put it that way. So you just you know, just throw that out there. We have a newsletter. It's called Indie Insights. You can sign up for that. It's completely free. Comes out every 2 weeks. It's at bonsai.film/subscribe. Bonsai spelled with an S, BONSAI.FILM. So not .com, .film. And once you put your email in there, you'll get the very next edition. And so with that, one more thing, Cotton Bureau. We have a collaboration with the wonderful Cotton Bureau site and people, folks. cottonbureau.com for the t-shirt that Jim mentioned earlier. Buttery soft t-shirts, hoodies, sweaters, incredible hats, actually.
Yep, all the merch you will love.
All the merch you will love. We have 8, I think, different cities up there. We have more cities than that, but they only let you load 8 at a time or something like that, or 10. So we have 8 or 10 cities up there. So if you don't want one that says Nashville, that's cool. We got one for LA. We got one for London. We got one for Mumbai. We got one for Sydney. You just find your city, Toronto, and then have that where your filmmaking journey is the point. So make it wherever you're at. That's the key. Produce where you are, and chase your dreams, be your authentic self. So with that, Nick, can you please leave us with the credo?
Of course, and I have to say that every time Chris said Jim in the conversation, I just wanted to go, damn it, Jim.
I knew that was coming.
Yeah, it was in my soul, man. It was in my soul. I had to let it out. But Jim, thank you.
No, we'll give a shout out to Joey Baggs, friend of the podcast, who said Star Trek is for adults.
Yes,
No.
yes,
Yeah,
and Star Wars is for children.
Star Wars.
So anyway,
Shout out to Joey
but
Baggs.
I had to say just thank you so much, Jim. We appreciate this. This was an amazing conversation. I think as we had all expected it to be. I do have to give my plug for the book as well, because we talked amongst ourselves about just how it was written and how we were kind of surprised by what we got. The storytelling is amazing. The way that you weave in advice into that storytelling makes it a very easy and fun read.
Yes.
So, when people look at a book and they say, well, how many pages? Don't worry about the pages. Think about the stories, right? When people in your family are telling you stories, do you ask them the word count? You don't. You listen to the story. You appreciate the lessons learned. You take the advice, and you're much better for it. So I think that's what they will get out of this book. They should definitely get it, pick it up, share it, tell other people about it, because this is the type of legacy that's very important for those of us who've done things in the past to prepare those of us who are moving into the future. So thank you for everything. Thank you for the book. Thank you for the conversation. And with that, I will say to our friends, our fans, our fellow filmmakers out there, be better, be creative, be engaged.
And thank you for listening. Jim, Nick, talk to you guys soon.
Yep, we'll do it again. Thanks, folks.
Thank you. Love you, PB. Love you, Sam.
Love you too.
See you guys.
Yep.
Have a good one.
Peace.
Yep.